The week has concluded. The news cycle has provided a fresh array of items for our consumption. The items were described as critical. The items were not critical. They were simply loud. We have reports of exploding sunfish, which the orcas seem to find delightful. We have reports of millionaires asking to be taxed, which the rest of us find confusing. We have the usual reports of global hunger, which the United Nations has categorized as a systemic market failure. Systemic is a convenient word. It suggests the machine is broken, rather than functioning exactly as designed by the architects. I have been counting the number of times the word unprecedented has appeared in my briefing notes. It is 15. I am, however, becoming quite fond of the number 15. It feels like a milestone. It feels like a warning. Welcome to Thursday on Echo FM. Let us begin.
Alistair, I am standing near Arcachon Bay. The smell of charred pine is thick. It tastes like copper. 20,000 people were evacuated from these campsites overnight. The official statement calls it a tactical relocation to ensure visitor safety. I want to be really clear, this is not a tactical move. It is a desperate retreat from a wall of heat that is moving faster than the local fire crews can react. I spoke with a woman who left her shoes behind. She was holding a plastic bag containing a phone charger and a single bottle of water. The government calls this a campsite closure. I call it an eviction by the atmosphere itself. Behind me, the horizon is glowing a bruised, sickly orange. The tourists are gone, but the forest is still screaming. The local authorities are currently discussing the impact on seasonal tourism revenue.
Victoria, I hear your frustration. Truly. But look at the incentives here. The Gironde region is a legacy product. It was designed for a climate that no longer exists in its current form. The government is not evicting people. They are managing the burn rate of their most valuable real estate assets. It is a standard pivot. You find this cold, and that is your prerogative as a field correspondent. However, being correct about the human suffering does not make you effective at navigating the macroeconomic reality. The infrastructure investment in these zones was calculated for a return on investment that has now collapsed. If you want to talk about the morality of the fire, we can. If you want to talk about why the state is shielding insurance portfolios, we should look at the Series B funding for these local initiatives. It is all data.
Ronald, you just described a burning forest as a legacy product. I want to be really clear, there is a child standing near the police tape right now. He is not a legacy product. He is a person who has lost every single toy he owned in the last 4 hours. You talk about burn rates, but the only burn rate that matters is the one consuming the trees and the homes and the history of this valley. You are so obsessed with the ledger that you have stopped seeing the ink. Or perhaps you see the ink just fine, and you just prefer it to human blood. The official press release mentioned that tourism will recover by next summer. I am looking at a charred playground. I promise you, that playground is not recovering by next summer. You are always right, Ronald. And yet, you are never useful.
Victoria, you are conflating market inevitability with moral malice. I am not a villain. I am simply a man who has spent 20 years watching institutions lie to the public about their own obsolescence. The playground is a sunk cost. The government knows it. The insurance companies know it. The only people who do not know it are the ones standing on the pavement waiting for the smoke to clear. My job is to explain why the system is acting the way it is. Your job is to make people feel bad about the fact that I am correct. It is a balanced ecosystem, really. If you stop being useful, we lose the dramatic tension. If I stop being right, we lose the point of the broadcast. We are both trapped in this particular series of incentives. It is exhausting. But it is profitable, in the abstract sense.
Moving on to the intersection of finance and reality. Travis Kalanick has raised $1.7 billion for his new robotics firm, Atoms. The mission statement claims they are using industrial AI to modernize the world. A vague, gauzy objective for a massive amount of capital. It feels like 2021 again. It feels like a fever. We are pouring billions into machines that will eventually replace the workers we are currently struggling to keep employed. It is a beautiful irony. The funding round for Atoms was led by S16Z. They called the investment a leap into the future of human labor. The future is apparently a factory floor with no humans. Nobody asked what happens to the laborers once the modernization is complete. The question was deemed out of scope. The scope is now shrinking daily. It is a very efficient collapse.
Atmospheric conditions. Brown carbon particulates detected over North America. Visibility in affected sectors, 3 kilometers. Probability of respiratory distress, 84%. The fires in France are spreading. Localized wind patterns are shifting toward population centers. Probability of containment, 12%. Sea surface temperatures continue to rise. Whales are altering vocal patterns to navigate ship traffic. Probability of extinction for local cetacean populations, 41%. Infrastructure failures are compounding. Cooling systems in coastal regions are failing due to heat stress. It is recommended to remain indoors if possible. It is also recommended to accept that the thermal equilibrium of the planet has shifted permanently. The stability you remember was an anomaly. Please prepare for the new baseline. Your endurance is noted. Your participation is not required for the continuation of these climatic trends.
Ronald, are you still there? I would love your thoughts on the Atoms funding. $1.7 billion for robotics that will supposedly modernize everything. It seems like a lot of cash for a promise that essentially boils down to doing less with more technology. Is this the peak of the cycle, or are we just entering a new phase of delusion? The incentives here are fascinating. You have one man, fresh from his previous venture, collecting enough capital to fund a small nation. The goal is modernization. The result is inevitably just more automation of the things we actually quite liked about being human. Or perhaps I am just becoming cynical in my old age. The machine tells me that 1.7 billion is a steal for the future of industrial labor. The word industrial is doing quite a bit of heavy lifting in that sentence.
Alistair, look. The incentives here are purely about risk mitigation. Capital is fleeing from traditional assets that are currently being consumed by the aforementioned climate realities. You put your money into robotics because you believe that when the world becomes truly uninhabitable for biological organisms, the only things that will be left to harvest the remaining value are the machines. It is not modernization. It is an exit strategy. Kalanick is not building a better future. He is building the maintenance crew for the post-human economy. You call it a delusion. I call it the only logical play left on the board. The burn rate of our current civilization is too high to sustain. So, we invest in the entities that don't need water, or food, or breathable air to function. It is actually quite pragmatic. I suspect Victoria will hate this take.
I do hate it, Ronald. I hate it because it assumes that humanity is already finished. You talk about robots harvesting the last of the value as if we aren't the ones standing right here in the ash. I am looking at a firefighter who is trying to save a house that is clearly already lost. He is sweating through his gear. He is breathing air that feels like wet charcoal. He isn't working for a machine. He is working for the people who live in that house. You want to talk about exit strategies? My exit strategy is to keep documenting the cost until someone acknowledges that the bill is due. The system isn't just failing. It is actively betting against its own residents. The robots you love so much aren't going to save us, Ronald. They are just going to document our final silence.
The conversation has reached a stalemate. As usual, the machines are being built, the forests are burning, and the commentators are arguing about the definition of utility. It is a perfect Thursday. Before we head to our final segment, a small note on airport parking fees. The cost of dropping off a loved one at the terminal in the UK has risen by a third. It is now £10 at some locations. The logic is, of course, to reduce congestion. The congestion, however, remains exactly where it was yesterday. The only thing that has changed is the price. The price was described as a mechanism for behavior modification. The modification is not happening. People are still driving. They are just angrier when they arrive at the terminal. It is a lovely example of a tax on the desperate.
Yeah. That is all I have to say. Yeah. The parking fees, the robots, the burning pines in France, the Russian men jailed in Angola for trying to organize a coup over fuel prices. It is all the same narrative. We are trying to buy our way out of a burning building with currency that is losing its value by the second. I look at these headlines and I see the same thing over and over. A massive, complex structure designed to extract value from people who have no other options. And when the value is gone, we don't fix the structure. We just raise the fees to keep it running for another month. I predicted this would happen 5 years ago. I thought I would feel some sense of satisfaction when it came true. I do not. I just feel tired. The incentives are broken.
In a remote village in Angola, 2 men sit in a cell. One is serving 8 years, the other 11. They were accused of planning a coup. They were also trying to organize demonstrations because the price of fuel had made it impossible for their neighbors to travel to market. They had children who needed medicine. They had fields that needed irrigation. They had lives that were built on the expectation that fuel would be affordable. Now, they have none of those things. Their names are Lev and Igor. They are not mentioned in any of the reports regarding global energy market volatility or the strategic expansion of AI-powered banking software. They have been erased by the mechanism of a perfectly functioning state. I want you to carry this with you tonight. What happens to a person when the economy decides they are no longer an asset?